Welcome to my Guild Ball blog, installment number 3. Today on the agenda we will talk about my adventures at Adepticon, how Crucible fits into the 9, and the new Hunters releases. As always, there are links in the description that will let you jump between these topics. Right after my last blog went up, Adepticon started. I went exclusively for Guild Ball this time around, with the overall goal of qualifying and doing well in the final event. I took my Alchemists, and I was able to get my hands on an early Crucible, which gave me a day or two head start painting her. The 9 I took were Midas, Smoke, Flask, Vitriol, Harry, Catalyst, Compound, Calculus, and Crucible. The Day 1 qualifier had a lot of Chicago on Chicago violence, with about every Chicagoan being paired up with another one. I had to play against our buddy Zach, and we played the mirror match, almost model for model. We both played Midas, Harry, Vitriol, Catalyst, Crucible, but had different mascots, with me playing Flask and him playing Nausea. And let me tell you that Crucible in the mirror is crazy. Everything was on fire all game. After turn 1, I don't think either of us had fewer than 4 models on fire at any given time. I managed to win that game and progress on with my qualifier attempt. My Day 1 hope of qualifying ended with Alex of Strictly the Worst fame beating me. I had to have Harry kill Greed on 6 hit points, and didn't take the knockdown on the first hit, and lost the game pretty much right there. On Day 2, I played my Alchemists again, since I had yet to qualify, and had to play Alex again in round 1. We had a really close game that I lost on a series of crazy events involving Harry goading Vitriol into Vitriol missing a 4-die pass to Midas. I managed to battle my way into a qualifier spot through the loser's bracket. The day of the main event, I had an early disaster. I was matched up with a very good Masons player, Dorian, but I felt very confident since I've played this matchup to death. Dorian set up an excellent trap, enticing me into committing Catalyst too early. I managed to battle my way back, but I left the monkey on 1 hit point and lost the game 11-12. I managed to fight my way back through the loser's bracket and had some excellent games against Bill Boyson and Antonio Mendez. Jordan goes on to win the tournament, and due to the very unfortunate way that tiebreaks work, I take the second qualifier spot, and Chicago sweeps the top 4 spots at Adepticon. I played Crucible in at least 6 games at Adepticon, and a few times since. I decided to swap in Crucible for Veteran Catalyst since I find myself playing him less and less the better my opponents get. I think there are a few other viable ways to build the roster, but I wanted to include both Crucible and Smoke, so I think this is the best one that does both of those things. One of the very misleading things about Crucible is the thought that she is all about preventing the other team from removing conditions. This is technically true, but not what makes her strong. She is best when she is preventing the other team from healing. To accomplish this, she needs to be already playing into a momentum-strapped team. I think there are 3.5 matchups you want Crucible for: Engineers, Morticians, Hunters, and Alchemists if you're kicking. Engineers are the one that I am least confident in, but neither Compound or Calculus are particularly good in this matchup, and for Ballista to kill players efficiently, he needs to take unmomentous results. Hunters and Morticians are both momentum-strapped. Alchemists would love to take her in the mirror, but if you are receiving the ball, you really need Compound to alleviate the kickoff pressure that Vitriol puts on you. Hunters are getting a large release this month, with 4 new players coming out. It's no secret that myself and the rest of the Chicago meta consider Hunters far and away the worst team in Guild Ball. Do these new players fix their issues? I'm not so sure. Skatha, their new captain, is up first. Skatha was going to be a disappointment for me no matter what. At SteamCon, Matt Hart teased that she was moon-themed and inspired by another moon-themed character from League of Legends. The only moon-themed character in League of Legends is Diana, who has a sweet character model, and I thought we were in for an incredible mini. But after the mini's reveal, I was left disappointed to say the least. With that out of the way, let's talk about the Hunter's new captain. A striker captain is exciting for Hunters, since they have a severe lack of good ball handlers. The first thing that strikes me as good about Skatha is that she has momentum on every column of her playbook, so if you give her 6 influence, she could output 6 momentum. Tackle on 2 is rough for a striker with only 5 tack, but it being momentous makes up for that a lot. Dodge on 1, double dodge on 2 will make her counterattacks dangerous, but she only has 1-inch melee. Her survivability is very similar to Fille's, same number of boxes, same defense and armor. She doesn't delete people like Fille does and doesn't have access to Swift Stance, but on the other hand, Chaska could tough skin her. Overall, probably less survivable than Fille because she's not going to delete some of the people that could enforce repercussions upon her. Cold Snap really excites me since we finally have an AoE play that you can trigger on the playbook. I really hope that they go back and change the AoEs on Mercury and Calculus to be triggerable on the playbook, but I'm not going to hold my breath for this. AoE Snare seems really, really good, but I really need to see it on the table. Snowball is very, very exciting. Giving Skatha the ability to have on-the-spot access to teamwork plays, it is incredibly interesting and seems quite strong. But when you really look into the exact mechanics of it, it's more like a double quick time that has a chance of failure. Blessing of the Moon Goddess seems alright, but something like Quick Time would have been stronger and accomplished a similar goal. Nature's Chill is clearly strong, but I'm worried about the restrictions placed on it could make it difficult to use in the same way that Theron's Forest can be tricky to use well. But unlike Theron's Forest, which hampers enemies, while most of the faction is light-footed, Nature's Chill would be a double-edged sword, increasing your opponent's threat ranges as well. Her legendary reminds me a lot of Pinvice's legendary, and allows us to use the Icy Sponge tokens for something. Hurrah! The increased mobility that the legendary brings seems great, but you will need to ping-pong off of opponents as far as goal-scoring feats go. I would put it below Pinvice, Ballista, and Seasoned Brisket, since all of those feel like guaranteed goals. But I think it's slightly stronger than Midas's legendary, which I think everyone undervalued at the start of Season 3. What I think really puts her on your 9 is the kickoff pressure that she brings. Hunters didn't have access to a Mist or Vitriol style piece that could pressure your opponent's turn 1 activations, but Skatha does that fairly well. We've got the new mascot Snow up next. Snow is an exciting mascot, helping fill more of the Hunter's ball handling gaps and providing an absolutely nuts aura. Momentous Tackle on 1 means that Snow is the 4th best model at taking the ball off players without, like, Mason's level armor, behind only the other players that are coming out in this box. Ooh Ball is a cute ability that will rarely come up, but Pack Mentality, good lord does this seem like it could blow out unexpecting players. It only gives you a free dodge on damage, but can trigger multiple times per activation, which is really scary. Now there is a ton of counterplay to this aura between the fact that it doesn't work while you're knocked down and only triggers on damage, but it will create some really, really interesting board puzzles. The other thing that makes this good in competitive play is that this aura, even if it never triggers, will eat your opponent's clock the same way that Countercharge from Brick can eat an opponent's clock. Next we have Ulfr, the new striker for Hunters. Ulfr is strange. He is this weird fighting striker that has cool abilities but influence issues. So he has Tackle on 2, Where'd They Go on 2, which is the lowest it's ever been printed, Momentous Tackle Dodge on 3, and Momentous 2 Damage on 3. His Tack 4 goes up to Tack 6 if he isn't within 4 inches of another friendly model, which means the only real way to get him to gain dice from a gang up is if he is engaging a model at 1 inch, directly opposite of him is a friendly model with 2 inch max melee. Long story short, this guy doesn't really do gang ups. Ambush is really cool. I like that it isn't an aura and just affects the model that he is charging. It's really, really cleanly worded. If he damages a model, he gains +1/+2 kick for the turn, bringing him to the striker ideal kick of 4/8. This is kind of where this mini falls apart for me. If you look at him in ideal circumstances, he looks like one of the best strikers in the game, but everything is so conditional. You have to do damage to get the good kick, you have to be 4 inches away from allies if you want the good tack. Also, the 2 results it seems like he wants most are Tackle and Where'd They Go, and they both are non-momentous. His 4 influence cap also makes it difficult to get all of these benefits going. You have to spend 2 to charge, take the momentous damage for the better kick, tackle the ball for 1, Where'd They Go for another, leaves you 1 short to shoot the ball. He seems incredibly difficult to use well. The final new model is Veteran Hearne. Veteran Hearne is a major improvement over original Hearne, but ultimately kind of boring. The most important change here is the increase in influence from a 1/3 to a 2/3, easing a lot of the influence problems that Hunters have. Hearne lost singled out, but his knockdown moved down a column and became momentous as well. This will be really helpful since counterattacking is all over the place and hunters really need a good knockdown to help fight against strong counterattackers. He remains very mobile despite his low movement stat. With light-footed and Winter's Blessing, he essentially can use rough ground like it's fast terrain, but it also stacks with fast terrain, which is relevant if you're taking him with Skatha. He can potentially gain even more movement with Lunar Eclipse, but it is incredibly janky and requires a bit of setup. Last Light is the most interesting ability on his card. Spending momentum to make character plays is neat, but he's in Hunters and they are really strapped for momentum. Ultimately is held back largely by the top-end influence being only 3. He would love to charge a snared target, deal damage to them, allowing him to jump over them with Lunar Eclipse, then tackle the ball and shoot, but again he's off by 1 influence. Overall, the new Hunters releases shore up the ball handling weaknesses of the Hunters while keeping the theme of snared and resource issues. I think you will see Skatha a lot, especially if Hunters are kicking. I like that instead of making models that invalidate the other players in the guild, they've expanded the Hunters' color pie to include ball handling. This gives Hunters a path to victory that formerly they did not have. I think I can confidently say that this brings them up to the power level of other teams like Morticians, Butchers, and Brewers. That's going to do it for this blog entry. If you could hit the like button on this video, it really helps people find my content in YouTube's search engine. Share the video with your friends if you think they would enjoy my content. And if you're new here, hit the subscribe button so that you know when I upload new content. See you in 2 weeks for another episode of Run the Length.